Hello everyone, welcome to Learn Style 3D Simulator. Today, I'm going to teach you about Simulator Physical Property Explanation. The focus of this lesson is the principles and functions of various numerical bar in physical property. First, open the UE software and import the pre-adapted garment. Open the garment editor in the Simulator plugin. In the Fabric Styles bar, you can change the physical properties of the fabric. Here is the fabric name. Below are the physical parameters of the fabric. Currently, the physical parameters of the garment fabric are referenced from Atelier. Based on the different simulation engines, the physical parameters of the two softwares from each other. You can first set the parameters in Atelier and then make more detailed adjustments in the simulator. Next, let's go into detailed explanations of each physical parameter. First is the stretch weft ratio. This parameter controls the tightness of the weft. Higher the number, tighter in weft, lower the number, looser in weft. Stretch warp ratio controls the tightness of the warp. Higher the number, tighter in warp, lower the number, looser in warp. Shearing controls the tightness of the fabric at a 45 degrees angle. Higher the number, tighter in bias, lower the number, looser in bias. Bending weft ratio controls the curvature of the weft. Higher the number, harder to bend and wrinkle in weft. Lower the number, easier to bend and wrinkle in weft. Bending warp ratio controls the curvature of the warp. Higher the number, harder to bend and wrinkle in warp. Lower the number, easier to bend and wrinkle in warp. Bending bias ratio controls the curvature strength of the fabric at a 45 degrees angle. Higher the number, harder to bend and wrinkle in bias. Lower the number, easier to bend and wrinkle in bias. Next is buckling ratio weft ratio, which is used to control the number of refined wrinkles in the weft. Higher the number, the more number of wrinkles can be controlled. It's important to note that this parameter needs to be used in conjunction with buckling stiff weft ratio below. Usually, these two parameters are used to refine some wrinkles. If buckling ratio weft ratio is adjusted to 100 and buckling stiff weft ratio below is high, the garment will not change much. Similarly, buckling ratio warp ratio is used to control the number of refined wrinkles in the warp. Higher the number, the more number of wrinkles can be controlled. Buckling ratio bias ratio is used to control the number of refined wrinkles in the fabric at a 45 degrees angle. Buckling stiff weft ratio is used to control the degree of refinement of wrinkles identified by weft ratio. It's important to note that the stiff here refers to the percentage relative to the original wrinkles. Higher the number, stiffer the wrinkle in weft, lower the number, softer the wrinkle in weft. Also, buckling stiff ratio needs to be used in conjunction with the buckling ratio. When the buckling ratio is 0 or too low, adjusting the buckling stiff ratio alone will have little effect on the garment. Buckling stiff warp ratio is used to control the degree of refinement of wrinkles identified by warp ratio. Buckling stiff bias ratio is used to control the degree of refinement of wrinkles identified by bias ratio. If you want a loose wrinkled effect, it is recommended to relatively increase the buckling ratio and relatively decrease the buckling stiff ratio. Next is the static friction, which is used to control the relative movement of the garment. Dynamic friction is used to control the resistance to relative movement when the fabric collides with other objects. The adjustable range is from 0 to 1. If this number is increased, there may be slight penetration in the garment simulation, as the motion effect of the garment deteriorates. Next is the weight, which determines the fabric's self-force and affects the drape of the fabric. Higher the number, under the influence of gravity, the dress will fall, and the garment will appear slightly heavy. Lower the number, the dress will rises, and the entire garment appears more elegant. Finally, there is thickness, with a minimum parameter of 0.1. If the garment sticks to the body, you can try reducing the thickness. It's important to note that a sudden increase in thickness parameter may cause lag or crashes. It is recommended not to adjust the number too high. Well, that's all for this lesson. Feel free to like, share, and leave comments in the video section. See you in the next video.